Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Students, today we are going to go through the second part of the explanation of the chapter Silk Road from Hornbill class 11th. So let's get started. A swath of the white stuff lay across the track in front of us, stretching for maybe 15 meters before it petered out and the dirt trail reappeared. The snow continued on either side of us, smoothing the abrupt bank on the upslope side. The bank was too steep for our vehicle to scale, so there was no way round the snow patch. I joined Daniel as Chetan stepped on to the encrusted snow and began to slither and slide forward, stamping his foot from time to time to ascertain how sturdy it was. So what has really happened here, that from the plainer areas, these people had entered in the mountain region. And as the mountain region started, the snow was everywhere. It was actually on the road also. And they did not know how to get through it. There was no way round. And that is when all of them, they exited the vehicle and the driver Chetan started figuring out how sturdy, how strong the snow was, whether they could drive over that or not. So a swath of snow is like this. It is visible on your screen and it's snow all over and you cannot drive through it, around it from anywhere. And pettered out means to diminish gradually and disappear. That by midday the rain had pettered out. So the snow also pettered out after a while and then there was the dirt trail. But around 15 meters of area was completely covered in snow, and that is when they decided that they had to figure out a way to get through the snow. I looked at my wristwatch. We were at 5,210 meters above the sea level. The snow didn't look too deep to me, but the danger wasn't its depth, Daniel said, so much as its icy top layer. If we slip off, the car could turn over, he suggested, as we saw Chetan grab handfuls of dirt and fling them across the frozen surface. We both pitched in. So Chetan, what he started doing, he put up some dirt and soil from around and started throwing it on the icy top layer. And everybody else, that is the narrator and Daniel, too started doing the same. When the snow was spread with soil, Daniel and I stayed out of the vehicle to lighten Chetan's load. He backed up and drove towards the dirty snow, eased the car on its icy surface and slowly drove its length without apparent difficulty. So Chetan was indeed a very skillful driver. He knew how to handle the situation. To handle the icy top layer, he threw the soil, the dirt over it. He was trying to create friction. Friction is a force that opposes motion between any surfaces that are touching. Friction can work for or against us. For example, putting sand on an icy sidewalk increases friction, so you are less likely to slip. And that's what has happened here. The vehicle did not turn over, it did not slip, it was pretty smooth for Daniel and everybody else. 10 minutes later, we stopped at another blockage. Not good, sir, Chetan announced, as he jumped out again to survey the scene. This time he decided to try and drive round the snow. So as we can see that as they were in the mountain region, the altitude was increasing, the snow was appearing over and over again. The slope was steep and studded with major rocks, but somehow Chetan negotiated them. Negotiated here means this, to manage to travel along a difficult route. The only way to negotiate the muddy hillside is on foot. So this is the negotiate word here. His four-wheel drive vehicle lurching from one obstacle to the next. In doing so, he cut off one of the hairpin bends, regaining the trail further up where the snow had not drifted. Let me show you the hairpin bends. These are the hairpin bends, the blank bends actually. And while driving through such a kind of area, you have to be very careful. And Chetan was doing it pretty well. That is why we can say that yes, he was a skillful driver. I checked my watch again as we continued to climb in the bright sunshine. We kept past 5,400 meters and my head began to throb horribly. I took gulps from my water bottle, which is supposed to help a rapid ascent. Rapid ascent means they were going on a high altitude. And when they were going on a high altitude over and over again, the narrator was actually started feeling the impact of the high altitude. People who spend too much time in high altitude locations risk more serious symptoms of altitude sickness. The narrator here was actually suffering from altitude sickness. These may range from headaches and dizziness to much more serious consequences such as brain or lung damage. So it was indeed the very beginning for the narrator. It wasn't that serious. We finally reached the top of the pass at 5,515 meters. It was marked by a large cairn of rocks festooned with white silk scarves and ragged prayer flags. It's a very common sight in such areas. Cairn of rocks with flags and scarves. They have religious importance. Hence, going around them is common. That's what has happened here. We all took around the cairn in a clockwise direction, as is the tradition. And Chetan checked the tires on his vehicle. He stopped at the petrol tank and partially unscrewed the top, which emitted a loud hiss. The lower atmospheric pressure was allowing the fuel to expand. It sounded dangerous to me. Maybe, sir, Chetan laughed, but no smoking. So the effect of altitude was visible everywhere. The people were suffering, especially the narrator. The petrol was, the fuel was expanding, and that is why Chetan said that there should not be any smoking, otherwise it will all blow up. Well, moving forward, my headache soon cleared as we careered down the other side of the pass. So when they moved downwards, the headache was completely gone. It was 2 o'clock by the time we stopped for lunch. We ate hot noodles inside a long canvas tent, part of a work camp erected beside a dry salt lake. The plateau is pockmarked with salt flats and brackish lakes, vestiges of the Tethys Ocean which bordered Tibet before the great continental collision that lifted it skyward. This one was a hive of activity. So let's see. This is the Tibetan Plateau. In geology and physical geography, a plateau, also called a high plain or a tableland, is an area of a highland consisting of flat terrain that is raised sharply above the surrounding area on at least one side. Often one or more sides have deep hills. And these are the salt flats and brackish lakes that is being referred to in the chapter. These are the tiny remains of the Tethys Ocean. The Himalayan mountain range and Tibetan plateau have formed as a result of the collision between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate, which began 50 million years ago and continues today. So this is the picture which you can which can make you understand. Earlier there was a huge supercontinent Gondwana, and this Gondwana started crumbling. So what you can see in the very far left top picture, the Tethys Sea is visible, and then moving in the clockwise direction, the vertical picture, the Indian plate crumbled, got away from the Gondwana supercontinent and started moving towards the Eurasian plate, and this is how it moved, and it went and collided with the Eurasian plate, and this is how the Himalayas, the Tibetan plateau, everything came in the picture. So that is visible in the third one. If we go in the clockwise direction, we can see the Indian plate, the Tibetan plateau, the Eurasian plate, and the Mount Everest. So this is how the picture that we see today of the world came into view. Earlier it was a completely different picture. So this particular area, the Tibetan plateau, was a hive of activity at that time because it was filled with salt all over, and there were people coming to gather the salt. Men with pickaxes and shovels trudging back and forth in their long sheepskin coats and salt-encrusted boots. All wore sunglasses against the glare as a steady stream of blue trucks emerged from the blindingly white lake laden with piles of salt. So because that particular area was filled with salt all over, there was this continuous working of collection of salt. By late afternoon, we had reached the small town of Hor, back on the main east-west highway that followed the old trade route from Lhasa to Kashmir. Daniel, who was returning to Lhasa, found a ride in a truck, so Chetan and I bade him farewell outside a tire repair shop. So at this point, when they reached Hor, Daniel had to go and only the narrator and the driver Chetan were left. So they bid him farewell. That is, they said their goodbyes. We had suffered 2 punctures in quick succession, one after the other. Succession is one after the other. On the drive down from the salt lake, and Chetan was eager to have them fixed since they left him with no spares. Besides, the second tire he had changed had been replaced by one that was as smooth as my bald head. So they had to change the tires because they were now going to go much higher and the route will be difficult. So this is the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra route map, and you can see the blue patch, that is Lake Mansarovar. This is the Mansarovar lake, and beside that on your right top the Hor, that town Hor, and they had to go to this place Darchan, which is in red dot on your left, and then they will go to complete the Kora, that is the going the round of Mount Kailash. This is how they are going to go, and it is going to be difficult for sure, but then they will try to adjust and learn more. It doesn't get easier, you just get stronger. So they are going on a high altitude, the journey is not that easy, but surely they will make it out somehow. So with this I will close it for today. The second part of Silk Road, we will head towards the next part in the next session. Thanks a lot.